Ethan Ward had lived on his ranch for more than 20 years, and in all that time, life had become a routine he followed without much thought. Every morning, he woke up before the sun appeared. He would step onto his wooden porch, stretch his stiff shoulders, and breathe in the cool, fresh air that always carried the smell of grass and soil. His ranch sat far from town, surrounded by open fields that seemed to stretch into forever. To many people, this kind of isolation felt lonely. But Ethan had grown used to it. In a way, he even found comfort in the quiet. He wasn't always alone. His wife, Anna, had shared this land with him many years ago. She loved the wide sky and the warm light that touched every corner of the ranch. But life had changed unexpectedly, and Ethan had lived by himself ever since. He never spoke much about the past. People in town respected his silence and understood not to ask too many questions. The ranch became his world, constant and steady, something he could control when life outside felt confusing. Most people in town knew Ethan as the man who spoke little but worked hard. He wore the same old hat, drove the same dusty truck, and shopped at the same small grocery store. He wasn't unfriendly, just quiet. Quiet in a way that made others feel calm around him. If anyone asked for help, Ethan would be the first to step in, though he would never stay long to talk. One late afternoon, after finishing his chores earlier than usual, Ethan decided to walk along the far side of his property. This was something he often did when his thoughts felt a little heavier than normal. The sun was setting slowly, painting the sky with soft orange and pink colors. The grass swayed lightly in the wind. Everything looked peaceful. It was the kind of scenery that reminded Ethan why he stayed on the ranch all these years. Out here, the world felt gentle. As he followed a familiar path, Ethan stopped to fix a loose wire on the fence. He knelt down, pulling the wire back into place, but just as he twisted it tight, he paused. Something faint drifted through the air. At first, he thought it was the sound of an animal somewhere in the distance. But after listening closely, he realized it wasn't an animal at all. It sounded like a soft cry, quiet, shaky, almost like someone trying not to be heard. Ethan straightened up slowly. He wasn't the type to panic, but the sound made him uneasy. There were no houses nearby, and people rarely came this far without reason. He listened again. The sound appeared once more, so faint that if the wind had blown even a little stronger, he might have missed it. Without hesitation, Ethan began walking toward the direction of the sound. With every step, the soft crying grew a little clearer. His boots pushed through the tall grass as he made his way toward the fence line near the back of his property. The evening light was dropping quickly, and the shadows grew longer on the ground. When he finally reached the far end of the fence, Ethan stopped completely. His breath caught for a moment, not from fear but from shock. There, at the edge of the wooden fence, was a young girl, no more than 16, sitting on the ground with her knees pulled close to her chest. She looked tired, scared, and very confused. Her hair was messy, her clothes dusty, and her eyes red as if she had been crying for a long time. Ethan took a step closer, careful not to startle her. The girl lifted her head quickly, eyes wide, like she expected danger. Ethan raised one hand slightly, not to touch her, but to show he meant no harm. "It's all right," he said gently, using the calmest voice he had. "I'm not here to trouble you." The girl didn't answer. She simply stared at him, waiting, unsure if she should trust him or not. Ethan could see the fear in her expression. He had met scared animals before, lost calves, injured horses, but this wasn't the same. This was a child who looked completely alone. Ethan knelt down a little distance away, keeping enough space so she wouldn't feel threatened. He spoke again softly. "Are you hurt? Do you need help?" Still, the girl didn't speak. But Ethan noticed her hands were shaking slightly. The wind blew again, and she tucked her chin to her knees, trying to make herself smaller as if she wished she could disappear. Ethan realized standing there wasn't enough. He looked at her clothes. They weren't damaged, just dusty. There were no signs of injury. But her silence said more than words could. Something had clearly gone wrong before she ended up here. He slowly sat down on the ground himself, not too close, but close enough that she could hear him clearly. "My name is Ethan Ward," he said in a steady voice. "This is my ranch. I live just down that way." The girl blinked but didn't speak. Her breathing was uneven, like she had been crying for hours. Ethan continued, "I don't know what happened, but it's getting dark. It's not safe for you to be out here alone. If you need a place to rest, I can help. I won't force you. I just want to make sure you're safe." The girl's eyes softened only slightly. She didn't seem ready to trust him, but she didn't look away either. Ethan knew rushing her wouldn't work. Patience was something he had learned working with animals and land, and he used the same calm approach now. He slowly stood up, brushed the dirt off his jeans, and said, "I'll bring a blanket. You look cold." He turned and walked toward his truck, not too fast, not too slow, giving the girl time to see that he meant no harm. When he returned a few minutes later, he held a soft blanket in his hands. The girl watched him carefully, her shoulders tense. Ethan didn't try to wrap the blanket around her. Instead, he placed it gently on the ground a few feet away. "If you want it, it's yours," he said. This time the girl moved. Only a tiny movement, but enough to show she was considering it. After a moment, she reached out and pulled the blanket close around her. She didn't say thank you, but Ethan didn't expect her to. The fact that she accepted the blanket was enough. He crouched down again, keeping distance. "Do you have a name?" he asked softly. She hesitated. Her voice, when it came, was barely more than a whisper. "Maya," Ethan nodded. "That's a nice name." Maya didn't speak again after that, but something in her posture changed. Her breathing slowed a little, and her eyes softened. She still looked scared, but no longer completely lost. The sun had nearly disappeared now, leaving the ranch in a soft blue light. Ethan knew they couldn't stay outside much longer. He didn't want Maya to feel unsafe, but he also couldn't leave her out in the cold night. "Maya," he said gently, "I'm going to take you to my house. You'll have a warm room, food, and water. You don't have to tell me anything tonight. Just rest. Tomorrow, we can figure things out." Maya looked at him for a long moment. She didn't nod, but she didn't refuse either. And sometimes, silence itself was a kind of answer. Ethan offered his hand, not to pull her, only to show kindness. Maya stared at it, unsure. But after a few long seconds, she slowly stood up on her own. She didn't take his hand, but she followed a few steps behind him. That was enough. Trust didn't have to happen all at once. As they walked back toward the house, the ranch felt strangely different, not lonely like before. Ethan sensed something in the air, something he hadn't felt in years. Maybe it was responsibility, or maybe it was simply the feeling of not being alone. Whatever it was, he knew one thing clearly. The moment he found Maya, his quiet life had changed, and he had no idea how deeply this one meeting would shape both of their futures. When Ethan brought Maya inside the house, the warm light from the living room fell softly across her face. She blinked a few times, almost as if her eyes weren't used to the brightness. The room smelled of freshly cooked soup, old wood, and a little bit of dust. Nothing unpleasant, just the scent of a place lived in by one man for many years. Maya looked around carefully, her hands clutching the blanket he had given her. She looked like someone who had learned to stay alert even when tired. Ethan didn't rush her. He simply walked ahead and turned on a few more lights so the house felt comfortable. "You can sit on the couch if you want," he said softly. Maya stayed near the doorway for a moment longer, uncertain. Finally, she took a few slow steps into the room and sat on the edge of the couch, her back straight, her fingers tightened around the edge of the blanket. Ethan went to the kitchen and warmed up some soup on the stove. From the corner of his eye, he kept glancing at Maya to make sure she was okay. She wasn't crying anymore, but she looked exhausted, like someone who had been carrying worry for a long time. When the soup was hot, he poured it into a bowl and brought it to her. "You should eat something," he said. "It'll make you feel better." Maya looked at the bowl, hesitating for a moment. Then she nodded slightly and took it from him. She held the spoon carefully, as if unsure if she should take big bites or small ones. Finally, she took a gentle sip. The warm food seemed to relax her just a little. Ethan sat in a chair across from her, giving her space while still being close enough to show he was there for her. After a few minutes, Maya finally spoke, her voice quiet but clearer than before. "Thank you." "You don't have to thank me," Ethan replied. "Anyone would do the same." But deep down, he knew not everyone would. People were busy with their own worries. Most wouldn't walk far across their land at evening. Most wouldn't hear a faint cry in the distance. And even if they did, not everyone would stop to investigate. Ethan didn't say any of that. He just gave a small smile and let her take her time. When Maya finished eating, she placed the bowl carefully on the small table beside the couch. She looked unsure about what came next. Ethan could see that she was wrestling with something inside her, whether to speak, whether to keep silent, whether to trust or stay guarded. Finally, she asked, "Do you want to know what happened?" Ethan shook his head lightly. "Only if you want to tell me. I won't ask you to share anything you're not ready to talk about." His calm tones seemed to give her a little courage. She took a deep breath, her fingers twisting the blanket for comfort. And finally she began speaking. "My dad, he hasn't been okay for a long time." Ethan didn't interrupt. He just listened. Maya continued slowly, choosing her words one piece at a time. "After my mom left, things at home changed. Dad started getting angry easily. Not dangerous, just stressed. He couldn't keep a job for long. Some days he was quiet. Some days he talked about things that didn't make sense. I think he was just lost. He didn't know how to handle everything that happened." She paused, staring down at her knees. Her voice shook a little. "Today he woke up in a strange mood. He told me we were going for a drive. I thought maybe things would get better. But while we were driving, he got upset again. He said he needed time alone, that he couldn't think straight. He stopped the car near the road by your ranch. He told me to wait there. I didn't understand why. And then, he left." She didn't go into details, and Ethan didn't press her. What mattered was that she was here now, safe. Maya took another deep breath and wiped her eyes with the blanket. "I don't think he meant to hurt me," she said softly. "I think he just didn't know what to do anymore." Ethan nodded. He understood that life wasn't always simple. People struggled, sometimes more than others. But no matter what her father was going through, leaving his child alone like that wasn't something a young girl should have to face. "You did the right thing by staying where you were," Ethan said calmly. "And I'm glad I found you." For the first time since arriving, Maya looked directly at him, and a faint sense of relief appeared in her eyes. Time passed quietly after that. Ethan made a phone call to the local authorities, explaining the situation in simple words. He had found a teenage girl on his property who needed help. The officer on the other end listened carefully and assured Ethan that they would send someone from social services soon. But when the officer checked the schedule, he realized they couldn't come until the next day. They were short-staffed, and the nearest worker was hours away. "Please keep her safe for tonight," the officer said. "We'll follow up first thing in the morning." Ethan agreed. After the call, he turned to Maya and explained it to her gently. "They'll come tomorrow. You can stay here tonight, and no one will ask you to go anywhere until then." Maya nodded, though she looked nervous again. It was clear she wasn't used to trusting adults easily. Ethan showed her a small guest room down the hallway. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean. A simple bed, a wooden chair, and a small window with a view of the ranch. "You can sleep here," he said. "There are fresh blankets in the closet. If you need anything during the night, you can knock on my door." Maya stepped into the room slowly. For a moment, she just stood there, absorbing the quiet and safety of the space. She touched the soft blanket on the bed, almost like she needed to be sure it was real. After a long pause, she whispered, "Thank you." "Really?" Ethan gave a small nod and stepped away to give her privacy. He closed the door gently behind him. As he walked down the hallway, he felt a mix of emotions he wasn't used to feeling. Concern, responsibility, a strange protective instinct he hadn't felt in years. He sat on his porch for a while, watching the night settle over the ranch. The stars were bright, the wind cool, but this evening felt different from all the others. For the first time in a long time, Ethan wasn't alone, and it wasn't because he invited company. It was because someone needed him. Inside the guest room, Maya lay under the soft blanket, staring at the ceiling. It had been a long, confusing day. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know what would happen with her father or what social services would decide. But she knew one thing for sure. Tonight, she was safe. And that was enough. As she closed her eyes, Maya felt her thoughts soften. The quiet of the ranch, the warmth of the room, and the kindness of a man who didn't even know her. These things wrapped around her like a shield. For the first time in many days, she allowed herself to feel a little hope. In the living room, Ethan eventually stood and turned off the last of the lights. As he walked to his own room, he glanced once more down the hallway toward the guest room. He didn't know much about her yet, who she really was, what she had been through, but he knew she needed help, and he knew he couldn't turn away from that. Life on the ranch had always been predictable. Quiet mornings, long days of work, peaceful nights. But now, everything had shifted slightly, like a door opening to something new. Ethan wasn't sure what the coming days would bring, but he felt a steady resolve growing inside him. Whatever happened next, he would make sure Maya didn't face it alone. With that thought, Ethan finally lay down to rest. Outside, the wind moved gently through the fields, carrying the promise of tomorrow. And inside the ranch house, two people who had been strangers just hours before were beginning a quiet, unexpected connection. One built not on words but on simple kindness and the hope for a better day. The next morning arrived quietly, with soft light spreading across the ranch. Birds were already awake, chirping in the trees near the window. Ethan stepped out of his room early, as usual, expecting another day of chores. But then he remembered Maya. It felt strange to think there was someone else in his home. For so many years he had woken up alone, heard his own footsteps in the hallway, and made breakfast only for himself. But today felt different, almost unfamiliar. He walked toward the kitchen and started preparing breakfast. He wasn't sure what Maya liked, so he kept things simple. Warm oatmeal, some fresh fruit, and a cup of tea. As he moved around the kitchen, he listened for any sound from the guest room. For a long time, the house stayed silent. He decided not to wake her. Kids needed rest, especially kids who had gone through a confusing day. After about an hour, he heard soft footsteps. Maya appeared at the doorway, still holding the blanket around her shoulders like a shield. Her hair was slightly messy, and her eyes looked tired, but she seemed calmer than the night before. "Morning," Ethan said gently. "Morning," she replied, her voice small but clearer. "I made breakfast. You can sit anywhere you like." Maya walked slowly to the table and sat down. She looked around the kitchen, from the wooden cabinets to the old kettle on the stove, as if studying every corner to understand where she was. When Ethan placed the bowl in front of her, she smiled faintly. "Thank you," she said. They ate mostly in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of quiet where both people were simply trying to adjust to a new situation. After breakfast, Ethan asked, "Did you sleep all right?" Maya nodded. "Yes, better than I expected." "I'm glad," Ethan replied. "You can rest today if you want. Or if you feel like walking around, I can show you the ranch. It might help keep your mind calm." Maya looked out the window. The bright fields and open space seemed to interest her. "Can I see the animals?" she asked softly. Ethan smiled. "Of course." They stepped outside, and the morning sun warmed the air. Maya followed Ethan across the yard, her steps slow at first, but becoming more confident as she realized how safe the place felt. The ranch looked alive, horses grazing near the far fence, chickens clucking near their coop, and the smell of hay drifting through the breeze. "This place is huge," Maya said, sounding surprised. "It keeps me busy," Ethan replied with a light chuckle. He took her to see the horses first. One of them, a gentle brown mare named Willow, walked right up to Maya. The girl stepped back nervously, but Ethan reassured her. "She's friendly. You can touch her if you want." Maya hesitated, then reached out her hand slowly. Willow nudged her palm softly. Maya's eyes lit up a little, like that small gesture broke through some of the fear she had been carrying. "She likes you," Ethan said. Maya smiled fully for the first time since he met her. "I've never touched a horse before." "You're doing great," Ethan replied. They walked further, and Ethan showed her how to feed the chickens and how to check the water troughs. He didn't make her do any real work. He simply let her watch or try little tasks if she wanted. It wasn't about teaching her chores. It was about helping her feel calm, giving her something peaceful to focus on. As they spent time together, Maya slowly started talking more. The quiet ranch seemed to open her heart little by little. She told Ethan about her school, how she had once enjoyed studying, especially reading stories. She talked about her old neighborhood, her mother who had left long ago, and how lonely things became after that. She didn't talk about anything painful in detail, but Ethan understood enough to know she had been carrying more sadness than any child should. "You're stronger than you think," Ethan told her gently. Maya looked down at the ground. "Sometimes I don't feel strong." "That's normal," Ethan said. "Strength isn't about feeling brave every moment. It's about getting through each day even when it's hard." She listened quietly, absorbing every word. Later in the afternoon, they sat under the shade of a large tree. Ethan poured 2 glasses of cold water. Maya watched the fields, the horses, the sky, everything so different from the life she had known. "This place feels peaceful," she said. "I like to think so," Ethan replied. "It's quiet, but quiet can be good." Maya nodded. "It feels safe." That one word touched Ethan more deeply than he expected. Safe. He knew that was something she hadn't felt in a long time. As the day continued, Ethan noticed the change in her. Her posture relaxed. Her eyes looked brighter. She wasn't smiling all the time, but the heavy fear she had brought with her was slowly melting away. The animals seemed to help her more than anything else. They accepted her without questions. They moved gently around her, giving her warmth without words. In the late afternoon, the phone rang. Ethan wiped his hands on a towel and answered. It was the officer from earlier. "Social services are delayed," the officer explained. "They can't visit today. They'll try again tomorrow. Is the girl still with you?" "Yes," Ethan said, glancing toward Maya, who stood near the porch, waiting. "She's fine. I'm taking care of her." "We appreciate it," the officer said. "Please continue to keep her safe." After the call, Ethan walked outside. Maya looked at him, worried. "Is something wrong?" "No," Ethan replied. "They'll come tomorrow instead. You'll stay one more night." She looked relieved, but also uncertain. "I don't want to be trouble." "You're not trouble," Ethan said firmly. "You're a guest, and guests are welcome here." Maya didn't argue. Instead, she followed him back into the house and helped set the table for dinner. She seemed eager to assist, to feel useful. At one point, she accidentally dropped a spoon, and immediately she froze, expecting correction. "It's fine," Ethan said gently. "Accidents happen." She relaxed again, realizing he didn't get upset over small mistakes. After dinner, they sat in the living room. Ethan told her simple stories about life on the ranch. Funny things animals did, memories of planting seasons, storms that passed quickly but felt huge in the moment. Maya listened with interest, asking questions that made him smile. "You must not feel lonely here," she said. "Sometimes I do," Ethan admitted. "But I've learned to live with it." Maya looked around the room quietly. "You helped me when you didn't have to," she said softly. "I don't know many people who would do that." Ethan didn't want her to think too deeply about that, so he replied simply, "Everyone deserves kindness, especially when they're going through something difficult." A small warmth spread across Maya's face. "I'm glad you found me," she whispered. Ethan didn't say it out loud, but he felt glad too. Glad he walked that part of the fence. Glad he heard her faint cry. Glad he didn't turn away. Something inside him felt lighter, as if helping her had opened a part of his heart he had closed a long time ago. When it was time for bed, Ethan reminded her, "If you need anything tonight, don't hesitate to call." Maya nodded. "Good night." "Good night," he replied. As she went to her room, Ethan sat alone for a moment in the living room. He looked at the quiet hallway and felt something unexpected. Purpose. For years he had lived only for the ranch, but now someone needed him in a way that went beyond daily chores or fixing fences. And he realized he didn't mind that feeling. In her room, Maya lay down and looked out the window. The moonlight touched the fields softly. She felt a strange mix of emotions, fear of the unknown future, but also a gentle hope she hadn't felt in a long time. She whispered to herself, "I'm safe." Saying the words made her feel even calmer. Slowly, she drifted into sleep, knowing that somewhere in the same house, an old rancher with a gentle heart was watching over her without asking for anything in return. And in that peaceful night, a bond formed quietly, one built on trust, kindness, and the slow healing of two lonely hearts who had unexpectedly crossed paths. The last part of the story begins at a moment when everything seems calm on the outside but heavy on the inside. The challenges of the past still echo in the mind, and every step forward feels like walking with old memories tied to the heart. Yet there is a strong belief inside that life cannot move ahead without letting go of the weight that slows the soul. Days begin to pass quietly. The routines continue, but the mind is not the same. The person has changed, and so has their way of looking at the world. Before, every problem felt like a mountain that could not be climbed, but now each problem looks like a test, something that might even help them grow. They understand that mistakes do not define a person forever. What defines them is what they do afterward. During this time, small moments become important. A morning cup of tea brings a sense of peace. A simple walk in the evening clears the mind. Watching the sky change colors reminds them that life is always moving, always shifting, never stuck. These gentle moments slowly heal the inner wounds that no one else can see. Even though things are slowly improving, there is still a long journey ahead. Some days bring doubts, and on those days it feels like all progress disappears. The mind whispers old worries, and fears from the past rise again. But with patience, the heart learns to respond kindly. Instead of fighting the fears, the person begins to understand them. They realize that fear appears because the heart wants protection. not because the heart wants to give up. One morning, while sitting alone, they reflect on the entire journey. They think about the people who supported them, the lessons that changed them, and the moments that made them stronger. Each memory feels like a chapter in a book they never planned to write but somehow needed to experience. As they go through these thoughts, something new awakens in them. Gratitude. Gratitude has a powerful way of turning pain into wisdom. It shows the value hidden inside difficult days. It teaches that even when life feels unfair, something meaningful is forming in the background. Slowly, this gratitude becomes a light inside the heart, guiding them through uncertainty. With this new light, they decide to rebuild their life with a fresh mindset. Instead of rushing, they choose to grow at their own pace. They set new goals, not to impress anyone, but to find inner peace. They want to replace old fears with new courage. They want to replace doubt with faith. And most importantly, they want to forgive, both others and themselves. Forgiveness becomes one of the biggest steps in their journey. At first, it feels impossible because the hurt runs deep. But with time, they understand that forgiveness is not about approving what happened. It is about freeing the heart from holding on too tightly. The more they forgive, the lighter they feel. Their mind becomes clearer, their emotions become calmer, and their days begin to carry a softer energy. Life also brings opportunities that seemed out of reach before. People start noticing their growth. Some admire their strength without knowing the full story behind it. Others feel inspired by the quiet determination they show. Without saying much, they become a source of strength for many. This fills them with a sense of purpose they never expected. As they start taking new steps, they come across new people, individuals who appreciate honesty, kindness, and patience. These new friendships remind them that life always brings fresh beginnings. Changes do not erase the past, but help build a better future. One afternoon, they sit with someone close to them and share parts of their journey. They speak softly, aware that their experiences may help someone else. While talking, they realize how far they have come. The trembling voice they once had is now steady. The fear in their eyes has faded. The uncertainty in their heart is slowly turning into confidence. They start working on the plans they once left behind. Projects that were forgotten now find space again. Dreams that were once pushed aside now feel alive. They no longer hesitate to try. They no longer fear failure. They understand that failure is only a step toward improvement, not the end of the road. As weeks pass, they notice something beautiful happening inside them. They begin to enjoy their own company. Silence no longer feels heavy. Loneliness no longer scares them. Instead, they use quiet moments to grow, to think, and to connect with themselves. This inner peace becomes their biggest strength. Just when everything seems stable, life tests them again. A sudden challenge appears, stress, pressure, or unexpected difficulty. For a moment, old emotions return, and worry rises again. But this time, they do not fall apart. They stand firm. They remind themselves of all the battles they have already won. They breathe deeply and move forward, believing that they can handle whatever comes. This confidence surprises even them. They never imagined they could face challenges with such calmness. It is proof that growth does not happen overnight. It happens quietly, day by day, deep inside the heart. As they continue on this path, something else becomes clear. They are not the same person anymore. They have learned how to protect their peace. They have learned how to set boundaries. They have learned how to respect themselves. And through all of this, they have discovered their true strength. One evening, they sit alone, looking at the sunset. The sky is painted in soft colors, orange, pink, and gold. It feels like the sky is telling a story of its own. A story of endings that lead to new beginnings. A story of light returning after every dark night. As they watch the sky, they feel a deep sense of calm. They realize that they have finally reached a point where the past no longer controls them. They smile softly, knowing they have survived everything they once thought they could not. This smile carries quiet pride, the kind that grows from endurance and patience. In the days that follow, they begin helping others who are going through similar struggles. They listen, they guide, they encourage. Not because they think they are perfect, but because they understand pain. They know how it feels to feel lost. And they know how powerful a kind word can be. Through helping others, they discover another part of themselves, a part filled with compassion. They realized that the struggles they faced were not meaningless. They were shaping them into someone who could bring light into other people's lives. Slowly, they start building a life that feels peaceful, purposeful, and balanced. Every day is not perfect, but every day is real. And that is enough. The journey ends not with a big celebration, but with a quiet understanding. An understanding that life is not about avoiding challenges, but growing through them. It is about finding strength inside the heart. It is about believing in oneself even when the world feels unsure. They walk forward with hope, carrying all the lessons they have learned. The past remains behind them, not forgotten, but transformed into wisdom. The future shines ahead, full of possibilities they are ready to embrace. And in that moment, they realize something beautiful. They did not just survive their story. They transformed it. They became stronger, wiser, and more peaceful than ever before. And their journey, filled with courage and patience, becomes a reminder that even the hardest chapters can lead to the most powerful endings.